Guys, we're making changes to this show.
We are. Yeah.
We're making changes to this show.
So no previews at the top.
No previews at the top.
You're never going to cry or say you had the best night of your life.
Yep. I'm going to talk very grounded in every story. They won't be interesting. They're going to be just like it happened.
No exaggerations.
No, very minimal exaggeration. Did you hear that, guys?
Yeah.
I'm trying to tone down my laugh, too. All the things you don't like about me, I'm changing.
By the way, I've listened too. Look at this bare wrist.
He took an Uber X here.
I did.
I hung out with Chappelle for the Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
And he's at the end of the day, he said, did you have a good time? And the only way I could quantify to him that I had the best time of my life was saying, Dave, I thought about taking my phone out about 15 times. That's how I knew I was having a good time. How fucking sad is that?
So if you've been following this channel since the start, you would have been here for some of the most seminal moments in the bursting of the podcast bubble. We've had Tom and Bert admitting that they owe their careers to Joe Rogan, Brendan Schaub quitting stand-up comedy, Shane Gillis coining the phrase Schultz Epiphany, Tom deleting all his tweets from September last year, and of course Cat Williams calling out Joe Rogan for pushing 6 never-been-funny comedians on his podcast. But yet again, we have another one of these moments. The pushback against Tom and Bert has become so strong and loud that they couldn't afford to ignore it any longer. They finally decided to address it head on at the beginning of the latest episode of Two Bears, One Cave.
Guys, we're making changes to this show.
We are. Yeah.
We're making changes to this show.
There's no more previews at the top.
No more previews at the top. Number one, you will never see me cry. I will never cry. From now on, from this point on, in any podcast, I promise, I will never cry. If I start to cry, I'll walk off. I'll walk off set. I will not let anyone see me cry. Do not watch the next 3 episodes of Bertcast. But
3 in a row?
Yeah, anytime a musician starts playing, I start crying.
Yeah, I hear
but
you.
I'm done crying. I'm done crying. I'm going to start grounded.
Yeah.
You're never going to ever hear me say, what's the phrase no one likes?
I just had the best night of my life.
I won't have, I've already had them all.
Yeah. They're all
so
done.
They're never going to have. We're doing an event tonight, and I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, I think so. So no previews at the top.
No previews at the top.
You're never going to cry or say you had the best night of your life.
Yep. I'm going to talk very grounded in every story. They won't be interesting. They're going to be just like it happened.
No exaggerations.
No, very minimal exaggeration.
Okay, very minimal exaggerations. What do? We reduced our we moved ads from the top of the show because
we're gaining weight too. We're gaining weight.
We're getting fatter.
I'm going to get fat again. I'm done. Listen, if you can allow me just to get jacked for my special, I'm going to be ripped for my special.
Okay.
I'm going to be ripped. I'm going to fucking go hard. I might get on Winstraw.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. I just think
Anavar.
Don't you love how they openly discuss getting on the gear? But finally, after their comment section turned completely hostile on YouTube and their social media posts are full of haters in the replies, they decided to announce some changes. They even posted on Twitter saying, "We've heard you. Between Bert and ad interruptions, Two Bears, One Cave hasn't been as fun lately. The show couldn't happen without all of you, so say goodbye to the host ad reads before the show. We are cutting YouTube ads by 50% and episode previews are gone." And as I was reading this for the first time, I scrolled down to the replies to see what people were saying. The very first reply took the words out of my mouth exactly. Damn, you're about a year behind these criticisms, but it's good to see at least someone's reading the feedback. Joe moved to Spotify and didn't have to worry about the comments. He gave you bad advice. So I'll pick up Rogan's advice towards the end of this video because there was so much more happening in this episode of Two Bears. Let's pick it back up with Bert explaining why he's so excited to be getting back on the gear.
Can I tell you the only reason I want to do it is?
Yeah.
I feel like every special looks identical because I'm the exact fatness in all of them.
Yeah.
So I want one to on the thumbnail.
Some would argue you got fatter in some of them.
Did you hear that, guys?
Yeah.
I'm trying to tone down my laugh too. All the things you don't like about me, I'm changing.
And
I don't like them about me either, okay?
By the way, I've listened too. Look at this bare wrist.
He took an Uber X here.
I did. I actually did the Uber with the person next to me. Pool. Uber pool. So I get it. We're listening.
I can't.
Reduction of ads.
Okay, I can't.
What else?
I'm trying to change, but I could never take an Uber pool.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't want to be completely negative about this. I think it's good that they finally realized they jumped the shark and need to turn back and come to reality. But the problem I have is that they still don't get it. I don't think they ever did. Remember how towards the end of last year, Tom started to clean up his act? He deleted all those tweets from September, like I said, when he had his airport meltdown. He refused to talk about his car collection with Bobby Kelly, and he eased up on roasting the pause. Even when all of that happened, he still didn't fully understand why things had gotten so bad in the first place. He seemed to think that we were getting offended and upset because he's rich and we're poor, so we felt offended when he talked about his car collection, his watches, holidays, fine dining experiences, etc. I said at the time more than once that it's not the fact that he's rich, it's just that it all got a bit boring. We don't care if he's rich, we just want to be entertained, relax, and have a laugh, instead of listening to episode 350 of Millionaire Boys Club. So I can't help but feel that Tom not wearing a watch misses the mark. I didn't even realize he wasn't wearing one until he pointed it out, but removing the preview at the beginning of each episode and not having 2 ad reads back to back straight away, as well as reducing the number of YouTube ads overall, is definitely a massive step in the right direction. I mean, last week's episode where they spent the first 5 minutes talking about the box of Lucy nicotine patches that they received, that was a pretty rock bottom moment. But then after they said their little 2-minute apology at the beginning of this week's episode, they pretty much went straight back to business as usual. And this is what I mean when I say I want to be positive about these changes, but I still can't help but feel that not only are they a day late and $1 short, but they still don't seem to get it. They started talking about this chick on Instagram called Cat Paws, who Bert follows. Tom and Christina made fun of her on YMH and got blocked. Anyway, she posts about her lifestyle. She's overweight, she's poor, so it makes sense why Tom would bully her. But Bert was making the point about how authentic and carefree she is, which made him realize something about himself.
Do you think you're drawn to it because it's just so unusual for someone to be that honest about that things aren't great for them? Like
maybe I think I connect with her in a weird way that I would be doing the same thing if I was her. There's a thing about
you would.
I would be.
That's what it is. I think
I would be doing the same thing, and I do it, and I think I overshare in a maybe what could be deemed a gross or flashy way. Mm-hmm. Like I've never not posted if I'm getting on a private jet because I don't know. I think it's cool. Yeah. And so I'll be like, yeah, I'm getting on a private jet. I think it's cool. I don't do it very often, but when I do it, I post it.
Yeah.
And so I would be doing the same thing she was doing.
Do people get upset when you do that?
I don't know. I don't read comments. Like genuinely, I don't. I'll catch one every now and then, and it'll bum me out, and I'll be like, oh,
yeah.
And so I just don't read them. But yeah, I think people get upset. I think they'd also post pictures if they were getting on a private jet. So I don't know what they're getting upset about.
So after all that talk at the beginning about making changes to the podcast and listening to the fans, within the same episode, they got straight back to Bert's therapy sessions.
Hypocrisy is the thing I try to fight hardest against. Here's my thing. This is a deep dive. I'm dealing with this in therapy, kind of. How much of my life is performative? You know? Mm-hmm. So like, I'll give you a small example. So I had a very busy day yesterday, very overwhelming. Started at 6 a.m. and it didn't end until I got in last night at midnight. Mm-hmm. I was having anxiety, but I was showing everyone I had anxiety. Like I wanted Leanne to feel it.
Yeah.
And so I was being anxious, and I was like, and then I realized in the car when I was by myself, my anxiety started going away, and I started wondering, was I being performative? I've noticed that I'm performative at times. Like I'll bring out my phone and I'll post a video, and whatever's happening in my life, I can disconnect from it, get a video of me in the sauna or in the polar plunger in the gym, and all of a sudden I get put into a better mood, and it's performative. And then all of a sudden I stopped posting a lot on stories. I know that I still post probably more than most comedians, but I don't post like I used to because I was having a hard time connecting to what was real and what I was wanting people to see. Mm-hmm. And so much of my life is, for such a long time, especially when I got hot on Instagram, I kept using Instagram, so much of it was to show you I was okay. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Bert ended up having a Schultz epiphany about something we've all been saying for years. When he says he's being performative, I think he really means he's constantly seeking validation. Bert really is the victim of his own fame. Think about it. He first found attention for being the biggest party boy at FSU. After an article was written about him and his partying lifestyle, Will Smith signed Bert on a development deal which led to the movie Van Wilder. And then his machine story got traction on Joe Rogan's podcast, where Rogan insisted that he tell the story wherever he goes, and the rest is history. So it's not hard to see that Bert has been chasing that same validation his whole career, and he can't get away from it. It's become his whole identity. So even though it's taken him 30 years to make that realization, there really isn't anything he can do about it. If Bert stops seeking approval for his party boy lifestyle, there's nothing left for him. He's just an empty shell.
What you said about yourself, first of all, is very insightful. I mean, that's very insightful. I think you should,
Well, that's why I'm terrified about these next 9 months. Because I don't know what I'm going to, if I'm not promoting something or having tickets to sell, or I don't have an hour to work on. I mean, my next hour's not due for another 2 years.
Well, I think you're going to be.
I know, but like, I wonder what, if you take away the performative aspect of me, where do I land in myself? And I think what's crazy, and I wonder what fans think is, do they notice it? And don't say like, I noticed it now because you brought it up, Bert. If you noticed it because I brought it up, that's okay. I get it. But like, if you noticed it before that and you were like, yeah, he's not being genuine anymore. He stopped being genuine.
You think you've stopped being genuine?
I feel like a little bit.
Oh man, this is hard to watch. Did he not realize everyone's been saying all of these things about him this whole time? Anyone who follows Bert on social media knows that he's addicted to attention, but he's only just realizing this now.
So I didn't have a problem pulling a camera up and talking to the camera.
Oh, right.
I didn't have a problem ignoring the people around me, putting them in the background, not asking if they wanted to be in the background. And like, Joe is not performative. And I would at times pull my camera out with Joe and he would be like, what the f*** are you doing?
Yeah.
And I would, in my head, I was like, well, if it's like, I hung out with Chappelle for the Eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, at the end of the day, he said, did you have a good time? And the only way I could quantify to him that I had the best time of my life was saying, Dave, I thought about taking my phone out about 15 times. That's how I knew I was having a good time. How fucking sad is that? Where you're like,
that's just your gauge for it.
My gauge for it is like, Dave, I wanted to record everything.
But you didn't.
I didn't repost anything. I had a great time.
Okay, this has gotten so bad that as sad and pathetic as he sounds, I can't help but feel sorry for him. But then the irony of all of this is that, sure, he's making some really insightful realizations, like Tom said, but isn't he doing exactly what he's being critical of himself for doing? He's pointing out that everything he does is for attention and using that realization to get more attention. It's like inception narcissism.
Are you saying that you're becoming less, because you sound like you're saying you're becoming less authentic, but what you're really also saying is you're less performative, which is more authentic, right?
I'm trying to become less performative.
Okay.
But I feel like I hit the crux. I can tell you exactly when I hit the crux. I can tell you the moment. I don't know if everyone knows it. So we getting ready to go there to do the road. Everyone meets at my house at like 6 a.m. I'd partied the night before and I'm hungover. I think I just left the gym. Everyone showed up. And they were like, what are you going to do now? What I really wanted to do was just go in, take a shower, and come out. But I got into the polar plunge and did a 3-minute polar plunge because people were there.
We're there. Yeah.
I wanted to show them that this is how I live my life.
Yeah.
But if they weren't there, I wouldn't have done it.
I understand that.
And I in the polar plunge, I went, how performative are you? The word performative hit in my head at that moment. And I went, my whole life is performative. My whole life. And when I spend time with the girls, they ask me not to be performative. They'll be like, Dad, no phones, no nothing. We're going to a Dodgers game. Like, be present. And when we went skiing, they said, no phones, don't put it on Instagram. And it was cool. I felt grounded and present, and I felt of purpose. I felt of use to the girls, and I'd get up and get them breakfast. But even as I get them breakfast, I want to pull my phone out and be like, I'm killing this dad shit, whatever the that is. And it's just, it's this inauthenticity that I think I've let permeate my life. Because I have all these things that I'm trying to sell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And it's like hard to sell a summer festival if you're like not going like, hey, we're all gonna have a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These insights that you're sharing are insightful. They are. Like you're being like very introspective.
It's why I'm taking time off.
Bert realizing he's completely one-dimensional has to be one of the saddest things I've ever seen. Well, that and this photo he posted recently. All jokes aside though, I think Bert's really dealing with something here. Think back to that last episode of JRE with the Sober October crew in January, where they were all pretty hammered and Bert brought up how much he envies Tom's ability to just not care about anything.
I look up to you because it's the coolest thing about you is that you really don't give a f.
That is nice.
It's so cool to not give a f. When you give a f, it's a little sad sometimes. You know?
I think I give a fuck about certain
You
things.
don't give a f.
Right. But what you don't give a
Tom,
about,
I
really
really
don't.
read your comments. You do not give a f.
You give the perfect amount of.
yeah.
I think it's like a balance.
No.
It's the right balance.
No, it's detrimental.
To what?
To him.
How so?
Why?
If I read his comments, I'd be like, start giving a f.
Yeah, but who's writing those comments? You can't read comments.
I do.
I said this at the time I covered this episode of JRE, that Rogan is being really damaging to Tom and Bert when he says things like that. And if you think about what's happened now, how they've come out and apologized and promised to make these changes, that's basically the exact opposite of what Rogan was telling them to do at the time.
The people that are writing them, you're getting a disproportionate amount of failures. If you're trying to get like a control study of the population, general population, if you're doing a pharmaceutical study, you have a bunch of old people, a bunch of young people, different walks of life. You're going to do it right. You do it with a bunch of biological variability. The variability of people that are wanting to comment negatively online is like, you can find those people. They don't have their shit together.
That's
They're
the
a
people with
mess.
dizziness.
Some of them are kids.
Just ignore them.
It's a nonsense way to communicate.
It is
You
nonsense.
don't, you
It's a
don't know
waste
who
of
they
energy.
are. You don't know what their background is. You don't know whether their opinion is valid. You're accepting negativity, and human beings have a natural propensity to look towards negative things because your brain is programmed to look for intruders and dangerous things.
Yeah.
See, this is where Rogan gets it so wrong. His critical mass is so big now that he doesn't need to read the comments. Rogan will always have an audience because he's built such a massive monopoly with JRE and become so mainstream that even if he loses a bunch of listeners, he will still have millions of casual listeners tune in just for the guests. Tom and Bert don't have that luxury. They've got a much smaller and more loyal following, so for them, it's absolutely crucial to read the comments and listen to the feedback. I mean, just take a look at what people were saying on the latest episode of Two Bears. Well, you've killed their spirits finally. It took them like 6 months to respond to criticism. Bert, I'm listening to you guys, toning down my laugh. Also, Bert, 20 minutes later, I don't read comments. We're making changes. Podcast where Bert talks about himself the whole time. People noticed Bert stopped being genuine months, maybe even a year ago. Tom too. We've openly said so, and just now he listens. They're so close to cracking. I love it. It's not about the weight or the ads or the previews. It's about the humility and actually being funny. Watch the time frame where Brent contradicts himself and all the BS he spews at the beginning of this. We did it, guys. We finally broke Bart. And it's not just YouTube. Every time Bert posts something on his socials, he gets a ton of hate in the replies. And I think it was when his Machine movie came out and flopped that he first realized that he had a serious problem.
When the movie came out, I was getting a lot of negative shit. And I texted Tommy. I was like, can you just take a look at it and see if it's real? You know, because I can't look at it. It f***s me up. So I just stopped looking at it. I hired someone to do it for me. But I don't
Someone
trust
just
them. I don't
reads
trust
them
them.
to
No. Just to,
you're an hat.
monitor them. And then Tommy read them and he was like, that's actually kind of sweet. You're like, it's not that bad.
Imagine trusting Tom Segura to read your comment section and give you feedback. These guys are so far removed from reality that it's almost sad to watch. And it seems like Bert knows there's a problem, but he doesn't know how to fix it, which is even sadder. Like I said earlier, they started off this episode of Two Bears with all the changes they're making and then proceeded to fall back into their old ways within minutes. That just says it all, right? As for Tom, it's so obvious he's playing it safe. He's more of a sounding board for Bert now instead of an active participant in the podcast. Every time Bert has a Schultz epiphany, Tom will try to make a point of it by congratulating Bert for being insightful or being deep and introspective, which is good, it's what he needs, but it also indulges Bert so he starts to seek validation through open therapy sessions instead of just chilling and being funny. And while for Bert it's all about attention, I think for Tom it's always been about the money. Tom would happily disappear into the sunset if he had enough money. It's so obvious that they're finally feeling the pinch from dropping views over the last 18 months that they had no choice but to address their fans and try to fix it. This is just damage control so that they can save their cash cow. Anyway, that's it from me. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to also check out my Patreon. There's a couple of videos there already and much more to come, so don't miss out on those. Also, if you're not a regular of this channel, hit the subscribe button and don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you ended up enjoying this video. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.
No, do you want to be kept? You want to be kept alive?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be kept alive forever.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Actually, get my blood work done every day and get me healthier.
What if you're in a coma?
Oh, cool.
Work it out.
Leave me in a coma. Leave me in a coma forever.
What if it's a burden to everybody?
I don't care. I made the money that's going to pay for it. It's my money. Pay for me. I want you to drain your accounts, keeping me alive.
Really?
Fuck yes. It's the best gift I could give them.